que bien estético. E pois essa pergunta non pode pasar.
Dani, per provar que el PowerPoint no es vegi.
Expulsa, ¿no? Expulsa, fora.
Xavi.
Elderly. No, I can't talk.
So, ¿sí? ¿Hola? Vale. Hola a tots, bona tarda.
Good afternoon.
Benvinguts
Welcome
i benvingudes a aquesta
to
nova xerrada
this
del cicle de
new talk
conferències
of
que estem
this
organitzant
conference
des de
cycle that we
l'Ajuntament de
have
Barcelona,
organized from the
implicant
Barcelona Town Hall.
a diferents
We have
responsables
involved
de mobilitat
several heads
d'altres
of mobility
ciutats europees,
from other European
ciutats,
cities
de les que tenim molt a
that we
aprendre.
have a lot to learn from. We've seen very different experiences from different aspects related to mobility. We've talked some days more about bikes, other days more about pollution. We've talked about different measures that can be applied, and that at a moment as the one we're in our city, well, it is especially useful to review and to compare where these cities were in the past and what they have done, to be able to compare in the political and citizenship actions that we all need to take on to get more sustainable and habitable cities. Today we have Daniel Helldén with us. He is Vice Mayor of Mobility in Stockholm, a city which in many regards is well ahead of us in many environmental aspects, and he, as Vice Mayor for Traffic, will explain to us everything related to mobility. And we are also especially interested in the experience on urban tools that they've had and they have in the present in Stockholm, and that has been implemented for the past 10 years. So how these sort of measures are prepared politically, and what's their institutional and citizen track record, what are the improvements that can be achieved, and also a more thorough overview of mobility in a city such as Stockholm. So we will be delighted to hear Daniel Helldén. We'll be delighted to hear all of this from him, and afterwards we'll be able to ask him any questions that are of our interest. And in these talks, in these conferences, we also try to place a spotlight in our city, and we try to also have media coverage of all of the learnings and all of the experiences that we can develop in a city such as Barcelona, looking at a city such as Stockholm. So thank you very much, Daniel, and you have the floor.
And thank you for letting me come here to talk to you about Stockholm. And as you see, my name is Daniel Helldén, and I'm Vice Mayor of Stockholm and head of traffic issues and even city environmental issues. And Stockholm is the capital of Sweden. So I will tell you a lot about many things. Now we see if this one works. No, we'll do like this instead. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our urban mobility strategy, congestion charges, which I know is something you're interested in, and other issues that we are working with in Stockholm. And it's a lot, and I hope you will that this will work well. First of all, Stockholm is situated in the east of Sweden. I don't know if this one is possible to point with. No. Somebody knows if I can point with this one? is I can also do like this. I changed it. Okay, it was off. Well, Stockholm is in the east of Sweden, and this is the region of Stockholm, and Stockholm is this part in the region. This is the biggest part of most inhabitants in Sweden. We have about 900,000 people living in Stockholm. And it's a fast-growing city, and we are expected to have 1 million inhabitants in 2020. And this is what you see from above. It's quite spread city with a lot of islands and several bridges. I think we have about 60 bridges in Stockholm, so it's quite difficult to get through in the city. And in the middle, we have the medieval part, which is car-free, and have been like that for 20 years. So this is what I have to deal with. We have some goals for the modern Stockholm within the framework of a growing city. We want the city to grow a lot. And when it's growing, we want it to be a livable city where people want to live and enjoy. We want to take climate responsibility, and that comes through a reduction of CO2 with 80% from the road transport by 2030. That means reduction of cars up to 30% in the city of Stockholm. We don't know if we're going to manage this, and we are quarreling if that's the right goal, but we are working with it. And we have a decision that the city will be fossil free in 2040. And that means everything in the city. There will be no fossil energy whatsoever in Stockholm. And then we want to be a modern urban mobility city. And for this, we have an urban mobility strategy, which we are working with, and a number of underlying plans for public transport, bus network, because the metro system isn't my issue, it's on the regional level. That's why it's not all the public transportation. Biking, walking, freight plan, goods plan, freight plan, parking plan, and road safety plan. And this urban mobility strategy is very nice to have, because in Stockholm we have 9 parties in the municipality. We have 4 parties that are ruling the municipality today. We have majority, but all parties in the municipality agrees on this. Everybody says they want us to follow it, and it's quite easy then to as a politician to implement at least most of it. And of course then we says that we are going to prioritize pedestrians and bicycles, public transport before other types of transportation, especially cars, which is down below. Before we took this urban mobility plan, we decided to have congestion charges, so that's not a part of the plan. And it was already in 2006, long before the plan, we conducted a referendum on introducing congestion taxes or not in Stockholm. It was a major political battle, I would say, in which especially the neighboring municipalities quarreled and worked hard against these congestion taxes. They didn't want it. And 6 months before the referendum, we had a full-scale test with these stations. And then after we shut it down, and then we had a referendum. So we had full-scale test and then no congestion charges, so the people could see what it would be like with them or without them. And today nobody opposed these taxes. It's widely accepted and appreciated and has been even extended the last year. So we are taking more taxation out of it. But we are always talking about congestions and not taxations, because that's the point, to stop people from sitting in queues. And here you can see this is the city, and you have the old town in the middle, because this one, yeah, there, and all the lakes around. And we have this ring around the inner city. And this is just one part of the municipality of Stockholm. Stockholm it's about 300,000 people living inside here, and it's 900,000 totally in Stockholm. So most of the Stockholmers live outside this ring. Inside the ring, it's free to drive. You don't have to pay when you're inside it. You pay when you go in and out, in these red dots. And you pay between 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the evening. So you don't have to pay in the night, you don't have to pay in the weekends, and you don't have to pay in the summer. And in Stockholm, it's vacation time just now, so you don't have to pay anything just now. So it's just when there are congestions that we take out the taxes. And the price is between €1 and €3.50, depending on how much congestion there are, which time of hour, if it's rush hour or not. We have no exceptions. Everybody have to pay. And you pay just when you enter the inner city or go out. So you pay if you just want to go in a little bit and go out again, you pay twice. So we don't want people to go a lot with the cars. Last year, we even extended it to this green part out there is one big highway which passes by Stockholm. It's really the only way if you go in the east part of Sweden to the north and the south part. So in the beginning, there were no taxation on this highway, but we introduced it last year with taxation, and nobody quarrels. Because the Stockholmers, they love these congestion charges. Even though we take in about it's 200 million euros a year that we take in from these charges. The effect of these congestion charges was that the amount of cars that goes in and out of the town went down by 25%, and it's nearly still the same. In the city, the amount of, not the cars, amount of cars, but how much the cars are driving in the city went down. About 15% are still the same. And the air pollution went down, and the people in Stockholm love it. And now we have decided to increase the taxation again, 2020, because we're going to build new metro systems. And the people in Stockholm don't say anything. We are talking about extending this congestion charge system with a flexible congestion taxes, because the system in the ring is not so flexible. If there are congestions in times where you don't have to pay, we have no way to take out taxation. So it would be better to have taxation points when it's queues, and when there are new queues or congestions, there are no taxation at all. We have a discussion about this. There is nothing decided or even up on the board, but it's something that is discussed because we understand that congestion charges are for congestions and not taxation. So that's a main point when you are talking about congestion charges. It's for congestions and not gaining money from the system. And it would be some sort of a real-time system which you can see in your mobile phone. Are there congestions? Do I have to pay just now? If I have to pay, I can pay, or otherwise I wait a couple of hours and take my journey at that time. We have a new parking strategy in Stockholm to manage our goals, especially the goal to decrease the amount of cars, which we started to implement last year. And I don't know how your parking system is working here in Barcelona, but in Stockholm we have had a regulation which says since the 50s you have to pay in the parts of the city. That's the part that's inside the congestion charge system. And now we are extending this. We decided to introduce parking fees everywhere. There will be no free parking. And with this, we want to reduce the number of cars on the streets in order to create more space for walking, cycling, and buses. And it's a big implementation. It will take about 8 years to manage this. There haven't been any such major reform previously in Sweden or elsewhere. I don't know if it's been in any bigger city. So the thing is, you have to pay if you have a car and you want to park it on the street, wherever you want to put it. And it reduces the car driving, it reduces the congestions in a growing city, and we want the cars to go into to garages. We have had the problem in Stockholm that there are garages in the buildings, but they are used to other things than putting cars. So we want them back into those garages, away from the streets. And we thought that the people in Stockholm, the inhabitants, would be really angry, but they haven't been angry at all. Some are angry, but not so many, and it's not a problem. We had a long political discussion, would we dare to do this, and it worked. And it's important when we do it that we do it combined with other measurements to talk about the positive effects of the parking regulations. And I've seen all your motorbikes here in Barcelona. We're going to taxate all motorbikes in Stockholm, wherever they are parked. And they have been really angry. They're the only part that have been really angry. We haven't got as many as you have. I think we have, if you take 2 blocks in Barcelona, that's all motorbikes in Stockholm. But they are angry, and they have tried to put me away. because of this. And the cars that are supposed to be in the city, because if we take down the amount of cars by 30%, there will be 70% cars anyway in the city. We want, of course, there should be electrical vehicles, and we know it will take a long time for that. But we are implementing a strategy with charge streets, which we call them. We take parking lots, so other cars are not allowed to stand here. And we are now putting out 500 places for electrical vehicles. And we have a calculation that says that we should need about 15,000 and 25,000 charging points in Stockholm in 2030. But we don't know how the technique will go. Will it be this sort of charging facilities for electrical cars? So that's why we have, first of all, 500, and then we're going to see how the technical system is going. And this is what it likes when we are opening. So we are trying to give benefits to the electric cars. They are not, when they talk about congestion charges, they have no exceptions, but we are trying to give them places to stand and to charge. And it's not the city that builds these charges, it's the electric companies. We let the companies use the land for these charges, and then they take the money from those who want to charge. Well, we have the diesel discussion in Stockholm, which everybody has. And the diesel gates has done a lot, and happening a lot of things. And we will probably have a new law in 2020 in Sweden. The government says that there will be a law. They're going to put it in place in the winter, but it will be maybe able to use in 2020. Low emission zones. And the two types of zones. One for new, that we put away older diesels and petrol vehicles. If the diesel don't have Euro 6, they are not allowed. Or you have another zone just for electrical vehicles. And we say in Stockholm that we are going to use these. And I'm saying to the Stockholms, don't buy a diesel car. You won't be able to use it. Not some places, of course, you're going to use it, but not in those places where the air is too polluted. So this is really a new measurement that we need, and we love it. Not everybody in Stockholm loves it, but now it's people know that it's coming, and that's a really central point with this, to tell the people you have to be a part of the new way to manage the city. Then we have a project with quiet freight transport at night, and that's a part of the congestion question, and even the air pollution question, and the climate issue. You are not allowed to run around with these types of vehicles in the night in Stockholm. You are not allowed it after 22 to go with them. But now we have a test, and you can deliver goods in the night if you have a vehicle that are electrical. And this is a hybrid vehicle. So it's working, and we're trying to expand it, so we get rid of these cars in the day. And those who are driving it, they love it because, well, they don't love to be up in the night to deliver goods, but they don't get stuck in the congestions. So that's another way to solve these issues. public transportation. Well, commuter train, metros, buses, and trams. I'm not in charge of commuter train, metros, buses, or trams, but I'm in charge of the streets. So the buses and the trams have to use my streets. So then the regional level who is in charge, they have to talk with me. So it's a bilateral thing, and pay a lot of the metro system and the buses and such things from the municipalities' taxation. Today we have 80% of people commuting into the city center going by public transportations because of a well-gridded metro system. 70% of the outer ring goes by public transportation, and 50% of those who comes from the other municipalities. So if you know a lot about Copenhagen, which has a lot of people going by bicycle, that's because they haven't got these type of figures for public transportations. This is our metro system. It's big in Stockholm. It's not big if you compare to other bigger cities. We started to build this in the 40s, and then we stopped building in the late 60s, in the beginning of the 70s, and now we are starting to build again. And these rings, black rings, shows new parts of the metro system that are ongoing projects now. And some parts of these projects are paid by the congestion charges, not all. And this is an important change of the system in Stockholm, especially this part. A lot of people going by car this way into the city. Now we hope they will go by the metro instead. And we are going to expand the metro even more. We decided this spring, a few months ago, that we're going to build 2 new extra metro lines, about those I showed you earlier, and a big tram line which goes from another municipality to Stockholm. And this is partly going to be paid by the congestion taxation system, which you are going to raise 2020. So we use the taxation of the cars to build these public transportations. Then we have a grid of other trams, which I won't show you now. But this is new things that we are building in Stockholm. We have a rapid bus system in Stockholm. I would say one of these buses, one line, has more passengers than it's not all of the national train system, but nearly. It takes so much people, these buses. And we have been working with this, and because the streets are mine, I'm responsible that they get through in the city. And we're now working with giving them prioritization, so when they're coming, there will be a green light immediately. We are removing parked cars that make it impossible for them to get through, or make it take longer time. We are putting out lanes for special bus lanes in the city. Well, it's like here, so it's new, nothing that's new. But we are working with it more and more to get people to use these buses instead of cars in the city. And we are also talking about if we going to have that you can go in through all doors in the buses to lower the time they are standing on the street, waiting for people to walking in the bus. We are working with a cycle plan for all of the city of Stockholm. We have a network of biking lanes, but they are not so good. So we are, for these 4 years, spending 100 million euros on cycle lanes. And this plan, as the urban mobility plan, we have all the parties in the municipality agrees on this one, and that makes it quite easy. People are quarreling because we are taking away car lanes and such things, but politically it's not an issue. And when we do these cycle lanes, we also make it better for pedestrians. So here you can see, this is when you showed how we are going to change the bridge in the center of Stockholm. We make the pedestrian part bigger, and in the same time as we do the cycling lanes. And when we have older cycle lanes, we broaden them. Here we have removed a lot of parking lots and giving the place to the bikes instead. This one, people biking in Stockholm loves it. I think it's marvelous. And then we build new ones where there are missing ones. And this is a highly dense part of Stockholm. And this is not in rush hour, but when it's rush hour, the cars are standing still here. And we are, even though taking away 2 car lanes, one in each direction, and building cycle lanes. And the one you see in the right is temporary when we are building the cycle lane, so it won't be like that. It will be more like the left one. The right one, that broad part will be a whole lane for cyclists in one direction. This is quite expensive. We have the problem, it's so expensive to build things in Stockholm. And then we have the cheap and fast solutions. Here we just put away the cars in one lane and made them for the lane for cyclists. We are trying different measures to make it possible for the cyclists to get through. Like other cities, well, the Euro system, we have a bike sharing system, a cycle sharing system, which we are going to change next year. So it will be put out in all parts of Stockholm, not only in the city center. So the suburbs will get these, not these bikes, because we're going to have other bikes than these. But we're going to have a system everywhere, and it's going to be placed mainly around public transportation, so you can switch from bus or metro or tram to the cycle system. And this is another thing we are dealing with. The city owns a lot of garages, and we allow those who hire a car to hire parking place for a car to park the bike free in other garages, and the garage where they have the car and other garages that the city owns. And that's a way to encourage people to ride a bike instead of taking the car. You can also rent a place for your bike in a garage, even though you don't have a car. But we want people to think about this. Do you really need the car? Could I take the bike instead? We have something that we call green parking rules, and I don't know how you do when you are building houses in Barcelona. When you build a house in Stockholm, before you have to build one parking lot per apartment. So 100 apartments meant 100 parking lots or garage places. We changed this so that you can go down to 0.2, which means 100 or 20 parking spaces per 100 apartments. But it requires that you have good facilities for bicyclists, and you have to connect the city to some sort of a car sharing system. And the idea is that the residents should not buy a car and park it somewhere else. Simply good mobility service is needed in the house. Then you don't have to build these parking lots. And of course we support car sharing in Stockholm. You should not have to own your own car. You should have to have accessibility to a car. And we know that owning a car triggers using a car. So we provide space in our garages and also out on the streets for carpools. And the city of Stockholm is also included in a member of carpool system. But we also have these ones. They are not in Stockholm any longer. We had them last year. This is also a sort of car sharing system which triggers spontaneous use of a car. I doubt that these are good for the city because these ones go by petrol and you take them instead of bus, walking or cycling. So these can be a problem. This other one, car sharing, you have to in advance tell somebody that you need it, and you can move things with this car. It's more difficult to move other things than yourself in this small car. So we are not supporting these small ones. And of course we have the taxi system that's a complement for people which we are in some way promoting. But now we have a new taxi system with small electrical taxis that have been introduced to Stockholm. Some sort of pod taxi it's called. 2 persons can ride in this one, or 3 with this person who's driving it. That's another way. You don't have to have these big taxis for shorter distances in the city. Well, we have a walking plan which we're working with. And the walking plan has a vision that you should be able to want to know how to and to dare to walk in the city. This is a new one. We haven't started really to implement it more than we are said that we are going to spend a lot of money to make it easier to walk in the city. And this is an example where I'm painting the zebra crossings in Stockholm at the beginning of a tunnel that has been impossible to pass by for the last 40 years. But those who are living in Stockholm, they love to pass this place, but they're not allowed to. So I said, well, then we make a zebra crossing. And of course it worked. So it's quite easy. Sometimes it's quite easy measurements. we have introduced something that we call summer pedestrian streets, and I'm not sure that you need that because your summer is your winter or something else in Stockholm. But in Stockholm, it can be awful in the winter. And you see the lady up there on the left on the street. It's cold and a lot of car parked. And then we have, in the summer, when it's warm, made the street to a pedestrian street. So in the winter, it goes back to be an ordinary street, and in May, it's a pedestrian street. So we have the lions waiting here to block the cars. And the people in Stockholm love this because they can see the city in a new way, and it's cheap, costs us nearly nothing to do this. It's really easy way to change the street, and then the restaurants are able to use the streets as somewhere to eat and have a beer and something like that. And then in September they disappear, and people just wait for the summer again. Cyclists and are allowed it here, even though the residents are allowed to go by a car to leave things at the house. Here are some other pedestrian streets. In the beginning, when we started with this, there were quite a big discussion, is that this is a good way to use the city. And today, nobody says anything about it, then it's lovely, it's summer again. And when you have to deal with the money in the city, this is a marvelous way to do it because it costs nearly nothing. This is the newest one in Stockholm near the Lake Mälaren, where we just cut off the street and let the people walk there instead. And of course, but as all other cities, we have pop-up parks and parklets and other things. You are allowed to hire a parking lot for a small amount. It's cheaper to hire a parking lot to have build your own little park than to have your car parked in the streets. And this is a way to make the people in Stockholm to reuse the city in another way. This is mostly in the summer. We have some that are left in the winter, but it's difficult in Sweden when there's a lot of snow and we have to remove the snow, then we can destroy all these things. So it's mostly a summer thing. And finally, we are currently working on a plan to change the streets in the central of Stockholm. And this is a big plan. And it has been sent to organizations, authorities, and companies to get their opinion this summer. And I hope we will be able to implement it. We don't know yet what people will think about this. But I hope it will be implemented step by step because it's a lot of streets in the center of Stockholm that we are talking about. And here we can see one of the big streets in Stockholm. It's called Kungsgatan, or the King Street. And we wanted to make it like this instead. We provide more space for walking and makes it easier to experience the nice street life. And we let cars, we put away ordinary cars. It's only taxis, bikes and buses allowed on the street. This is our vision. We don't know if we're going to be able to manage this. So it's quite a difference. Even though this is in the summer, so it's nicer than this one. And here's another street in Stockholm, in the city, where there are mostly cars. The tram is quite new. It couple of years ago. The street was built in this way in the late 60s, but in the beginning of the 70s. So the tram is a new thing, but still they are mostly for cars, and we want to put away the cars and make it like this, with bike lanes and the place for the tram. It can also be buses in the same lane as the tram. And this is the way we want to regain the city for the citizens. And a modern city needs to be a livable, climate smart, and continuously on the move. So this is the next step we're going to take, I hope. And I'm not sure we're going to manage it, but I hope we will do it. Because the little I know is that when I've been talking about this in the newspapers, people say this is fantastic. And then there are coming some persons that says that, well, what are you going to do with all these cars? But we don't need them in the city, because that's not what we do. We don't drive cars in the city. So, gracias. And we bike in the winter. And now I need to have the translation, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
You don't have.
I have got it here. Like this.
Perfect. Thanks very much for this inspiring presentation. No se sent. Sí, ara sí. Perfecte. Doncs moltíssimes gràcies per
Thank you
aquesta
very
presentació.
much for this presentation.
Molts
We
aspectes
have been
de-
through many
de la
aspects
mobilitat
of mobility,
quotidiana,
day-to-day
amb
mobility,
solucions,
with
This
solutions.
is in Spanish.
Can you hear me okay on channel 2? Hello?
No, I have.
Yes? Okay, good.
sí?
Thank you.
Vale. Doncs això, moltes,
So, as I was saying, thank you very much. We've seen many
senzilles,
simple solutions
viables, no,
and feasible
d'aplicar a
solutions, easy to
a
apply
moltes ciutats.
in many cities.
Repassat temes d'aparcament,
We've
de
talked
vehicles
about
elèctrics,
parking, we've talked about
d'usos
electrical
BRTs,
vehicles.
que em separo això, sí, se sent millor.
Can you hear me better? Okay,
Un
so
ambiciós
we
pla
have
ciclista,
seen this
bé, jo crec
ambitious
que,
cycling plan,
doncs,
and I think
crec que no se sent.
I'm having a bit of trouble with the microphone.
Bueno, un ambiciós
So an
pla
ambitious
ciclista, ara no se'm sent.
cycling plan, can you
Sí?
hear me now? Yes? Okay, let's do
Això,
it
un
like this.
ambiciós,
So an
pla
ambitious
ciclista
cycling plan
que pretén invertir 100 milions
which aims at
d'euros
investing
en
100 million
tots
euro
els anys,
in 4 years
millores
improvements
al carril bus, com
in the
estem
bus
veient,
lanes
i a la circulació
and
dels busos a la
in
ciutat, com
bus
estem,
circulation in the
també estem
city,
fent
as we are
aquí
doing as well
aquí a
here
Barcelona.
in Barcelona.
Bueno, jo crec que hi ha
So I
moltes
think
qüestions,
that there are many
interessants, no,
interesting
que
topics
preguntar.
that we could ask about. Shall I take that other microphone?
Moltes gràcies. Vale, que acabarem abans. Bueno, jo crec que hi ha moltes qüestions que podríem preguntar.
I think there's many things
Prefereixo
we could ask.
que obriu
But I'd rather
doncs,
you
amb totes les preguntes que
open with other
vulgueu fer, si no,
questions
doncs, podem
that you want to
plantejar
ask, and
unes
otherwise we
quantes,
can
però em
ask
semblaria
them
més interessant,
ourselves.
segur que teniu diferents
I'm
qüestions a
sure
preguntar.
that you have
comença?
questions yourself. So who wants to start?
Hello, Daniel. And thank you very much for coming here to Barcelona and doing this speaking. it was quite interesting to see the perspective from Stockholm. I was in Stockholm a few years ago. I am from the main bicycle association of the region. And the last years, well, you know, as Mercedes said, in Barcelona, they're developing the new network of buses with the orthogonal distribution, with a lot of new bus lanes and redistribution of the actual network. And also we are doing a lot of new bike lanes. And apart from the Eixample quarter, which, you know, it's very kind of easy to plan, we faced a lot of issues when dealing with the conjunction of bicycle and the bus, for example. I'm not entering on motorbikes or cars, which are other questions, but especially for public transportation, which are basically the bus, taxis and bicycles. And lately we're being very, we want to look to other cities at what are their solutions and how they deal with these kind of issues, no? And I would be very interested to see how you mix or not the transportation on buses and bicycles. Thank you.
Do you mean mixing in the way that you take the
in the same street or not at all? I mean, what is the perspective? And because there's a lot of cities that try to make like the so-called green streets or not green street, green ways, which are included for buses and bicycles. I saw there was one of your slides that they included one of these aspects, no? But I don't know. Not everybody is positive to this thinking, you know. So I just wanted to know what's your opinion on this.
We have tried it in Stockholm. So the picture you saw, there are one lane today where there are buses and bikes in the same lane, and we have it in another place also in Stockholm. Those are biking, they like it because they are so broad that you can bike and have the bus outside. And when there's no bus there, we have a lot of space. Those who are driving the buses don't like it because they are not really sure where they have the bikes. So we are trying to separate it, but it's not possible everywhere. And that picture which I showed, it's not possible to have bike lanes in the same time as you have buses and great pedestrian parts. So we try, see how it's working. And it's not easy.
If you, I would like to add something more on this question, because when you mix bicycles and buses, have you considered mixing on the same lane the other solution, a single lane for buses and a shared lane for cars and bicycles?
No. We don't want to mix bicycles with cars. If there's somewhere where there are accidents, there are cars and cyclists. So we want to separate them. Of course, there are some parts where we have shared space, solutions and such things, but then the cars are driving so slowly that it's working, but not on an ordinary road. We don't want it.
Hi, thank you. I think I really like about the presentation that you use in a way the resources of the car for constructing a more sustainable city, and I think that's a very good strategy that like a lot of cities we should take. But I was wondering, in Amsterdam they are dealing with the issue of motorbikes and cyclists, and they are in this debate because the low-income people are the ones who are mainly in the motorbikes. I don't know if that's the case in Stockholm, and if all this plan maybe you have some strategies, because I was thinking all the time maybe electric cars are more expensive, and if you have think how to include all the population, I don't know if there are poor people in Stockholm that you have like this.
Of course there are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
In Stockholm we don't have a lot of motorbikes or such things. Maybe because of the climate. So it's not a big problem. I know I've been to Amsterdam and seen their problems. But we don't have them in Stockholm, I would say. Today we are more discussing the electric bikes, which are going faster. Well, not so fast, but enough for other cyclists to feel that something is worrying. And that are we discussing. But I think today, if there are a cycle lane, you are not allowed to take the bike in the car lane. The government are probably going to change this law so you can take the bike in the car lane, and if you are biking fast, then you can go in the car lane instead. So that's a way to deal with it. But motorbikes, it's not a problem in Stockholm.
Thank you. I'll take it in English this time. I think it's very interesting because part of what you have told about are small changes in the city. And I think that Barcelona, these many years, has tried to make small changes. But you have talked about very much, let's say, participation. That the citizens should, let's say, give their opinion on all the things, and you try to get, let's say, common solutions for the municipality and the citizens. That's one thing. The other is that normally, when we speak about streets, and this image we have here is very clear, it's how it's going on along the street. How many lanes, how large sidewalks should we have? But we are discussing also here in Barcelona, and would like to know how is that in the walking plan? When you come to the pedestrian crossings in the major streets, how much time, or have you not discussed that in the walking plan, will the pedestrians get? And how would you, let's say, get a new share of time and space in crossings?
We are not discussing that issue in the walking plan. We ought to, we should have done that, because it's a problem. Older people don't get over the street. And I'm going to have a new discussion about this issue, because it's a problem. But as always, it's a discussion, will the cars be standing in the street, and there will be new congestions, and are there buses? We are prioritizing buses, and we want them to get through. Are the pedestrians going to have their more share of the time? It will be a problem for the other ones. But we're working on this, and we are working on a new plan for a broader pedestrian crossings. So more people in the same time can go over. We have some places in Stockholm where you get stuck because people are going from both sides and you can't get through. We are working on that today.
Any further questions?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I don't know for how long have you been in Barcelona, but from your outer perspective, what do you think is the biggest problem, mobility problem, that Barcelona has?
I landed with the plane this morning, and last time I were in Barcelona was '88. So what I've seen is two things. a lot of motorbikes everywhere in the pedestrian lanes and wherever. We haven't got that in Stockholm. That must be a problem. And I know the motorbikes are a problem because there's a lot of noise from them, and they make the pollution of the air is a big problem. That was one thing that I've seen, and the other one is that the cars are going quite fast in the streets. And in Stockholm, we are now implementing a new policy for the speed in Stockholm. So we're in the city, there will be maximum 40 kilometers an hour. And when there are smaller streets, it will be 30 kilometers an hour. And that's something we are doing just now everywhere in Stockholm. And that's something I experienced this day. Fast cars and a lot of motorbikes. That's all I know.
Would it be possible to have some more information regarding the new parking regulations you are putting forward? You were saying that there will be no free parking on street, and also that the cars should be parked on off-street facilities. What is the current situation regarding parking? Can you give us some figures regarding how many parking spaces do you have on street at this moment? If there's any area that it's a paying area, and if these plans are arising a lot of opposition. And also, it was very interesting to see, because we are trying to do something similar here in Barcelona, that you are modifying the planning regulations for going from one parking space for living lot to 0.2, and that it's also a thing that it's controversial here in.
We don't know what's going to happen when we are getting out in the real outskirts of the city, because somewhere the cars are. Sometimes the people maybe will be angry because they know that, well, they will have to pay. Do they have a car? They have to pay. And what was the other question? Well, there is some opposition from the opposition, the political opposition, but on small parts, because we have done a lot of regulations. Everybody have to pay, even if you have a handicap permit, you have to pay. And that part, people from the opposition try to make a political issue about. But it's working, because we have a lot of permits that comes from other countries with people that are allowed to have these permits. But we are not able to check if they are real. So we have built up a system where we can check if they are real and if they are needing it, and if they do, they get a lower fee for parking. So.
Sí, bona tarda. Li faré una pregunta en català.
Good afternoon, I'll ask in Catalan. I would like to know your opinion about the concept of mobility as a service. I know in some cities in your country there have been tests, the Ubico system, some initiatives. I would like to know what you think about this new concept, which is very much the fashion now, mobility as a service.
I think that it's a good way to walk. In Gothenburg, they had this Mobigo system where you had a card which worked on cycles on the public transport, and if you wanted to have a car sharing car and such things. And that was a test, and we are now going to test the same thing in Stockholm to see if we can make it easier for people to abandon the car, don't buy a car. It should be easy to use other sorts of transportations. And when we are getting the new bike sharing system, or you are going to connect it to your card for the public transportation, so it will be quite easy. And I think that's the way we are going to work to solve the problems in the city. So there are a big project just now starting to test these things in Stockholm.
So, last summer I visited Stockholm, and I use all public transport systems. They all are very quick. It means very efficient and cheaper than our system. So congratulations for the public transport in Stockholm. But my question was related to the ship, because Stockholm is a constellation of islands, and you didn't mention which is the role of the ships. Is the ship in the political agenda for boosting this system?
It's in the political agenda, but it's difficult because Stockholm isn't flat. It goes up and down, and a lot of the parts where we have the water, you have to go from the high parts where the houses are and down. So it's difficult to use these facilities, the water facilities. That's one point. The other is that we haven't found a way to deal with the things that the city of Stockholm, the municipality, we own all the parts near the lakes, and the region, I would say, they don't want to pay for some facilities that are ours, and that's a problem. Then there are another problem. You're not allowed to go fast with a boat inside Stockholm, but you want to get fast when you go by public transportations, which you do if you take a rapid bus or the metros or something like that. But when you are sitting, it's very nice. We have a test just now outside the city hall in Stockholm with the boat. It's going from one part of the city to the other one. But you are sitting there and wondering, why isn't anything happening? Why it's so slow? So we are talking about if we are going to allow public transportations on boats that are faster. But we are not really sure if we are allowed to do that because of the government. That's another problem.
Just one question. As here in Barcelona, we in the last year we're having a phenomenon that of these strange gadgets that people uses for mobility, segways and things like this, and this is becoming well. We make a regulation for this, and I don't know if in Stockholm you have this issue and how you face it. And another question is allowed. Uh, as you know, the bike lanes in Barcelona is increasing a lot, but as this is increasing, the conflict with other mobility modes are increasing, or there's some citizens that are feeling that the bikes are occupying the pedestrians areas or things like this. How you face it? Do you have this problem in Stockholm?
First of all, when we're building bike lanes, yes, we have problems, but it's mostly the cars those are driving cars that are angry because we take away their space, which they think are a human right to have. But that's why I would like to have smart congestion charges, because there are space in the city. It's just a question of how many cars there are going to be in the city. If we create it in a smart way, those who need the cars to drive in the city to do things, working or whatever they are doing, will get through. So it's mostly a question about a conflict between cars and cyclists, because we prioritize pedestrians and buses. So of course there are some times when there are difficulties, because we're going to prioritize both and all three in some way, and that's the problem, how to do it. But it's not a big problem, it's the cars. And then, what was the first question? What was segways? Yes, we don't have so many segways. You know, in Sweden in the winter it's a lot of snow, so you can use them in the summer, but then you can't use them in the winter. So ordinary people don't buy them. The police in Stockholm uses them, the local police, and that's working very well. Well, they know that they are not allowed to use them everywhere and such things, because they're police, but they get through really fast everywhere. Touristic use, yes. We also have the touristic use, yeah, but it's mostly in the summer, and in this time, it's not a problem, because the people in Stockholm isn't in Stockholm; they are somewhere else. Mm.
I have two questions.
Sí, no, I was saying that I suppose the question was, it's because in Barcelona the touristic use of those kind of motorized individual transports has risen in some areas, some touristic areas, and they're becoming a point of discomfort with local neighbors, but. Suppose in Stockholm, touristic use, it's not so much spread as here.
No, it's not.
I have only two questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. One question is about bicycle parking. If you have some measures to, of course, you are building more bicycle parking, I guess, on street, but off street, inside the buildings, if you are implementing some facilities for bicycle parking, and inside the dwellings or public buildings, like the bicycle building in Malmo. It's quite new, this building. It's quite a revolution in the world in bicycle architecture. And the other question is about psychologistics. You are doing something about that with cargo bikes in the city center, some kind of services related to that, and if you are using also urban consolation centers, as we have in Barcelona. We have two different points. At the same time, I would like to invite you to visit the point we are running in Estació de França. Maybe if you have time this weekend, I could show you this point. Thank you.
What was it for? What type of facilities was it?
The type of facilities, yeah. About the parking, or
what you're talking about last?
The cycling.
It's a cargo bikes, sir.
Yeah. It's a point for only cargo bikes to do the. It's a urban conservation center next to the city center to deliver with cargo bikes only.
We have a flight plan for goods and such things. We're working with what I showed in the night deliveries with quiet lorries and such things. And we are also working with cargo bikes to see if we're going to expand that sort of distribution in Stockholm. I wouldn't say that we have come so far, but we are working on it, or the bureau is working on it. When it comes to bike facilities or parking lots for bikes, we are putting out 2,000 parking places for bikes each year in Stockholm. So we are spreading them everywhere in the city, because it should be easy to park the bike, and it should be easy to lock it, so you won't lose it immediately. And we use car parking lots especially for this. And then we have a cycle garage which we are building, and we opened a big one last year. And I didn't talk about the commuter train tunnel that we opened last week in Stockholm, which is a big thing, with a new station in the center, 2 new stations. And then one of these places we have a new big facility for cycle parking inside. You can lock it in, and it's safe, and such things. And we're working on this on all the places where we have the commuter trains. But it costs a lot of money, but we're trying to make these facilities.
I have time for the last question. What about intermobility between bicycles, trams and buses? Do you have any free political you can get with the bicycle into the trains or the buses, or you are charging for using this kind of service?
This is a big issue in Stockholm, and you're not allowed to take a bike on the bus. You're not allowed to take a bike in the metro system. You're allowed to take them on the commuter trains, but not to the center station, and not in rush hour.
Okay.
And what I talked about, the new tunnel for commuter trains. In the beginning, it was told that in the new big station, which is not a central station, you were not allowed to take the bike. But the politician who was in charge of the commuter trains, he changed his mind 2 weeks before the inauguration of this station. So we have a big discussion about this. Okay. I would like to have more bikes in the system, but the problem is in the metro system, in the morning it's so full, so much people, that it's impossible to get in a bike in the metro.
Thank you.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about the new the rapid bus system. You said that it is allowed to go inside the buses through all the doors. Is this a question that sometimes we discuss?
Nobody are allowed it. We want them to be allowed to do it.
Oh,
and that's not my decision. It's on a regional level, so I'm quarreling with the regional level.
Okay, I understood that it is allowed, but it's not. Okay.
We have persons standing outside the buses in some places, and to look at their cards to walk on the buses, but not on every station.
Okay, so it's something that you may be trying to do in the future, but not.
Yes, we would like to have that, but the problem is that those who are driving the buses, they get paid through each person going onto the bus.
Oh, okay.
So they don't want to have a system where they would miss a person going on the bus.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
I'm coming back again here with two things. One about the traffic safety plan. So what is your main concern about traffic safety and type of accidents in Stockholm? And the other thing is about the walking plan. Have you defined, let's say, minimum space in a street for the pedestrians? Because you have still in many streets, especially in the old city, but it's basically pedestrianized, but still there are many streets where you have very narrow sidewalks. And has that been decided how to amplify that?
We have not decided the space for those who are walking. We would like to do that, but we know it would be enormously costly to implement it. So we haven't done it because we don't know. If we say it would be 3, 4, or 5 meters, we wouldn't have any more money to do other things. That's the problem. But we are talking about it when we are building new ones, but we haven't any rules yet for this. And when it comes to traffic safety things, well, what we are doing is we are lowering the speed from 50 is disappearing to 40 and 30. And when we do this, we are working with all the crossings in the city and the suburbs to make them safe for the bikes, for those who are walking and such things. But that's very expensive too. So we decided last month that we're going to put out 75 million euros to traffic safety issues connected to this speed degradation. And I'm also talking to the national administration, traffic administration. I want to have speed cameras in the city because it's very cheap. It doesn't cost anything compared to change the infrastructure. But the national traffic administration, they don't want to have these cameras in the cities, and I can't understand why. But it's a big discussion for just in this moment.
I also had a question about those summer pedestrian streets. I think it would be interesting to know how you manage this this summer pedestrianizations. If it's the neighbors who decided, if you decide some areas, how many streets do you decide to change in that style? Maybe the economic economic activities have something to say about it. How do you manage it all?
It started when we was a change in government, 2014, and we decided in the budget for the city that we would try one street. We said which street. We didn't ask anybody, really, and we did it. Some people were quite angry in the beginning, especially those living at that street, and especially because we removed their parking lots. That was the big issue. Now we have a system that you can rent a car parking lot in the garage that we own for a small amount as a compensation. And after the first year, people from Stockholm and from the rest of Sweden and everybody visiting Stockholm love these streets. So there have been no problem to implement new streets. We have what do you call it? Underneath the municipality government, we have local smaller parts dealing with the districts, and they are asking why don't we get a street in this manner in the summer? But we decided in my board which streets it would be, and we had a rule that says that those who are working with this should talk to companies, those owning the houses and restaurants and the districts to see where they want these facilities. And today we have done everything people want to do, and it's working. And we also know that those who have their restaurants on the streets, they double their income in the summer. So they love it. And now we have a problem that the restaurants on other streets says, why don't we have these summer pedestrian streets? So it's a new problem. But it's a quite nice problem.
Doncs bé, hem fet moltes preguntes.
Well, we asked many questions. So that's okay with you. We will stop at that. We will finish the cycle with this conference, the European Cities Cycle, but the idea is to continue having these experiences to talk to cities in other countries in the world. I think
unes aportacions
interessantíssimes també very interesting contributions.
En el que tenim, no?
Also about
en paral·lel a Barcelona, no? I també
in the same regard in Barcelona, and so what we have in common and what sets
com
us
assenyalaves dos problemes que efectivament
són
problemes que criden l'atenció quan s'arriba a la ciutat, no? Un accés de l'ocupació de l'espai públic per part de les motos i un accés de velocitat. Són qüestions en les que aquesta ciutat necessita treballar de forma prioritària. I per tant, és evident, no? Que qualsevol que ens visita les pot veure. Esperem veure-us quan tornem, no? amb el següent cicle. La idea és continuar treballant amb altres ciutats i veient altres experiències. Moltes gràcies, Daniel, per la teva aportació i uns petits regals.
And, well, some small tokens of appreciation.
Thank you very much.